Hello everyone, welcome back to S.A.S videos by Stock Market Astrology Stats. Today, we will share some fun and insightful stats on the stock market experience of people on curated data, based on the Jupiter position in all houses in natal chart. First of all, we want to inform you that all contents shared are only for entertainment of general public. Contents are not to be considered as any sort of recommendation or advice. This video is not intended to promote any actions in capital market. Also, all data that is used in this video are publicly shared data with S.A.S team and are subjected to lot of noise and errors. No private data of any person is fetched or will be shared through channel. So let's begin with stats for Jupiter. This chart shows the cumulative returns of all houses for quick check and comparison. We were able to collect about 600 plus records and returns until 2022 March. Not everyone are completely sure about their planet positions or the current investment performance. Some people just shared their approximate date of birth and we had to calculate it using software. Regarding their stock market performance, mostly it's a ballpark figure from their memory. We have also averaged out decimal positions to round figures for simplicity. So, what's the overall stats for Jupiter in all houses? The best 3 houses are the 10th house with 19% return, 5th house with 18% and the 4th house with 17% return. The difference between houses are narrow and also shows us the insight that performance of masses are not very far off from the performance of benchmark indices. The good performance of 10th house is not a surprise. But, interestingly for Jupiter, natural 10th house is Capricorn, where it is debilitated. But still, when it comes to stock market performance, stats is showing, debilitation has no drawback. Good performance of other 2 houses, 5th and 4th, was in line with expectation. For Jupiter, both 10th and 4th, where it is exalted and debilitated naturally, is in top 3. This is one beauty of collecting data and running some simple stats. The last 3 houses are the 3rd house with 8% return, 6th with 9% and the 9th house with 10% return. Many here at S.A.S videos were not expecting to see 9th house to come in last 3. Naturally, 9th is considered good, yet stock market stats did surprise us. Why did people with these 3 positions had such underperformance on bulk data? Honestly, we don't know. Now, this may not mean that people with Jupiter in these 3 positions will not get good returns in stock market. There is huge volatility and position of remaining planets may also make big difference in returns. In certain cases, due to some big, overall underperformance of few records, the overall performance of the house gets averaged down or averaged up. Now let's move on to see some stats related to each individual house. Jupiter in the 1st house. Recorded 55 plus entries with this position. On average, people with this position clocked about 12% return. This is an average return. Return are quite stable too. The average age at which they joined stock market is 25. So these people are comparatively quicker than some other houses. One thing noticeable is that, even though average return is okay, the overall satisfaction from stock market is less than expected. At 55%, only slightly above half are satisfied with their stock market experience. We are not sure why it is so. Jupiter in the 2nd house. Recorded 45 plus entries with this position. On average, people with this position clocked about 11% return. Returns are okay but slightly below normal. The average age at which they joined stock market is 28. So they seem to join mostly in late 20s. The latest surge in users joining stock market has pushed down average age for most houses, including this one. When it comes to satisfaction, we got a 45% value, which is also low. We don't know why as many considers 2nd to be a good position for Jupiter. Below normal returns can be a primary reason but can also include personal reasons which we are blind to. Jupiter in the 3rd house. Recorded 50 plus entries with this position. On average, people with this position clocked about 8% return. This is the worst performing house in records. The average age at which they joined stock market is 31. So, they are quite late to join markets. The delayed joining might be one cause of underperformance. More time gives more compounding advantage. At 50%, similar to first house, around half of the people are satisfied with their stock market experience. Jupiter in the fourth house. Recorded 50+ entries with this position. On average, people with this position clocked about 17% return. This is the third best performing house. This house was a favorite position among masses, as Jupiter is naturally exalted in fourth house. At 17%, it has lived up to the hype. The average age at which they joined stock market is 26. What's surprising is, satisfaction is only 80%, even though returns are good. Jupiter in the fifth house. Recorded 45+ entries with this position. On average, people with this position clocked about 18% return. This is the second best performing house. The average age at which they joined stock market is 25. So these people are also a bit quicker to market, similar to first house. At 110%, this house has the highest satisfaction level. People had better experience than they initially expected. Jupiter in the sixth house. Recorded 65+ entries with this position. On average, people with this position clocked about 9% return. This is the second worst performing house. Average age is quite noticeable. The average age at which they joined stock market is 30. So these people join markets bit late than usual. The delayed joining may also play a part in the subdued performance, as more time gives more compounding benefits. Almost 85% people with this position are satisfied with their stock market experience. That is surprising, considering below normal returns at overall basis. Jupiter in the seventh house. Recorded 55+ entries with this position. On average, people with this position clocked about 16% return. This is the fourth best performing house. The average age at which they joined stock market is 29. So similar to fourth house, people with this position also join markets around late 20s. At 90%, most people with this position had good experience in stock markets. Jupiter in the eighth house. Recorded 55+ entries with this position. On average, people with this position clocked about 15% return. That's quite a good return. The average age at which they joined stock market is 25. So, similar to fifth, they are very quick to join stock markets. At 85%, most seem satisfied with this position. Jupiter in the ninth house. Recorded 55+ entries with this position. On average, people with this position clocked about 10% return. This is the third worst performing house. That has surprised few here. This house was also a favorite among masses for Jupiter. But, stats are showing a different story. The big positive is, returns are quite stable and consistent with less volatility. The average age at which they joined stock market is 29. Again, even though returns are below normal, almost 95% people with this position are satisfied with their stock market experience. Jupiter in the 10th house. Recorded 50+ entries with this position. On average, people with this position clocked about 19% return. This is the best performing house in records. Naturally, 10th house seems bit negative for Jupiter. Stats show Jupiter here does good for people in stock market. The average age at which they joined stock market is 24. So, they are very quick to join stock markets. This house has one of the lowest average age. At 90%, most are satisfied, with few exceptions. Jupiter in the 11th house. Recorded 60+ entries with this position. On average, people with this position clocked about 14% return. It's an above average performance. The average age at which they joined stock market is 24. So, similar to 10th house, They are also very quick to join markets. At 85%, satisfaction is above normal. Jupiter in the 12th house. Recorded 60+ entries with this position. On average, people with this position clocked about 13% return. It's a normal performance. Many here were expecting normal to below normal returns. But at 13% with less volatility, it's done all right. The average age at which they joined stock market is 30. So, they are a bit late to markets. At 100%, most are satisfied, with few above and below expectation records. So, that's all for today from Stock Market Astrology Stats. See you all later in next video with stats for another planet in all houses. Till then, wishing everyone a good time. Thank you and God bless.